It did. We are live. Okay, so sorry for the delay, everybody. At 1:07 p.m. on Thursday, April 13th, I'll call to order our third day of budget hearings. And if we could get a roll call, please, Director Oster.
Absolutely, Chair Romero-Worth. Councillor Cassett.
Here.
Councillor Lindell. Thank you. Councillor Rivera.
Here.
Councillor Villarreal.
She's excused. She's not feeling well.
Councillor Romero-Worth.
I am here.
Madam Chair, you have a quorum.
Terrific. Do we have changes to today's agenda? I see that we're going to cover 1, 2, 3, 4 budgets.
Yes, Madam Chair, that is correct, and there are no changes to today's agenda.
Okay, if we could get a motion to approve.
Move to approve.
Okay.
Motion and a second to approve the agenda. All those in favor, aye. Anybody opposed? We have an agenda. My opening remarks, I don't really have anything to say today, except that I believe we have until 5 o'clock to hear 4 of these agendas. We do have a member of the Finance Committee who needs to leave early because of another committee meeting. And so if we can finish before 5 o'clock, I think that would be great, but we'll just kind of see how it goes. So I will try to keep us clipping along. And I think we can go to our first agenda, which is the municipal court.
Good afternoon. My name is Chad Chittum. I'm the staff attorney at the municipal court. This is Jacqueline Baca. She is our finance administrator. Unfortunately, Judge Vigil could not be here today. So if I may, I would present our budget.
Terrific.
If we could go to the first slide, one of the things I want to point out.
And I'm going to need you to speak into the mic because while we might basically be able to hear you, you're not sitting very far from us. You are on YouTube, and I think you are also streaming on the government channel. So they can't hear unless you're speaking directly into a mic.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
That may be better. Thank you. So one of the things I want to point out on the mission statement is that second sentence. The court seeks to serve as a model court for the state. Just recently, the court was contacted by the Judicial Education Center at the University of New Mexico School of Law and asked that we come down and present at the judges conference in early May. We'll be presenting to all the municipal court judges in the state our outreach court program and also our court services program. So just really wanted to highlight that. We look down at our staffing. Currently, it shows that we have 4 vacant positions. We are in the process of restructuring the court in an effort to retain employees and have career advancements. So for example, we may not be filling all 4 of those positions. We are going to use some of the fundings from 1 or 2 of those positions to create court clerk 1, 2, 3 positions at different levels so that what we've noticed is we don't need a lot of entry level positions, but we want to keep our clerks, have them advance so that we could better serve the public at a higher level. Next slide, please. On this one, I want to point out the $100,000 for the landscaping maintenance. That comes from the administrative offices of the court's recommendation. They came out and evaluated the court over a year ago and made some recommendations. We have done some overhaul of the maintenance, or excuse me, of the landscaping, cutting back hiding spots as been recommended. And so we're part of that budget is to maintain that landscaping to make sure it's a safe environment for all. Next slide, please. I'd like to point out on the goals for the fiscal year 24. With the assistance of the IT in their budget, I think it's important to point out that we're continuously trying to upgrade the technology in the courtroom as far as monitors, telephone systems, speakers, so that we have we keep up with the technology. As we all know, COVID changed things, specifically how courts are run. And so with the assistance of IT and their budget, we're able to provide a more advanced courtroom for trials. In addition, we mail notices to defendants. We've also been emailing them to them, but with the budget, and again, I point out with some of this is in IT's budget, we are doing the texting software. So defendants are now getting notice through the mail, through email. They're getting a call the day before their hearing. And hopefully with this budget, we'll be able to be texting defendants also as well. One of the things, the next slide, please, with the restructuring of the court staff, we have created the outreach court program with an outreach court coordinator. And in this program, I'd like to point out is very, it's a diversionary program that is kind of unique in the sense that it recognizes what someone else is already doing for their court requirements. It is service provider driven referral system. So meaning if someone is working with a service provider such as LifeLink, and they have a case in the municipal court, a non-DWI case in the municipal court, the court will recognize what they're already doing to serve as their requirements for the court. That being said, I'm open to questions.
Okay, thank you. Questions from the committee? I guess I have one question about your vacancies. So can you go over that again? You have 4. You want to keep them for clerks? Did I hear that right?
So these are 4 entry-level positions.
Okay.
With the help of the HR department, we are in the process of trying to, instead of having 3 or 4 positions, using some of the funding from one position to increase the pay and increase the level in the other 3 positions. So that would give, instead of just a entry-level position, it gives the current clerks a room to grow within the court, and therefore keeping them versus them trying to go to a different department or a stage or another job.
And are you currently, you said you're trying to hire for those positions now, or have they been advertised? Have you had success in getting candidates? Give us a little bit of the history behind trying to fill those vacancies.
Absolutely. We are currently checking references right now for 2 of the positions. We had interviews last week. We did have about 9 applicants.
And can you elaborate on the role of a clerk at the municipal court?
Sure. A court clerk is responsible for cashiering, checking in. So for example, when a defendant comes to the court and they want to just pay their ticket, they have the ability to do that there. The clerk also schedules appointments. We do a lot of things telephonically now. So a court clerk is responsible for scheduling of hearings, in addition to processing and data entry into our case management system.
Okay, and I think in past years you have had, and I assume you still do somewhere in your line item, which is just one line item, the role of folks who fill in for the judge. How much money is set aside for that? And how many people do that?
Currently,
And what do you call them? I forgot. I think it was called out last year is why I'm kind of remembering that, but I can't remember. Pro tem. There we go. For each or for the total? And you have 3? Okay. Great. And I know the landscaping piece is of particular importance to Judge V. Hill. She has been before us before to talk about the real need for that, and interesting that now you're seeing kind of a safety component as part of that. And I suppose that just means just generally for those coming and going from the court, that things are well manicured.
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay, great. Other questions from the committee? Yes, Counselor Rivera.
Just one question. Did you request and or receive funding from the legislature this year? Neither request. Good.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. We did request, we did not receive.
What did you request for?
We requested for safety items within the court, which were requested by AOC to provide a change within the municipal court. The total amount was $240,000.
Thank you.
Counselor Lindell.
Thank you, Chair. How much did you say the landscaping was?
100,000.
Why don't I see that anywhere in my book?
If you look on slide 3, they do have that.
Pardon me?
It's on slide 3, but you're right
It's
now.
not, it's not in the budget book.
It's budget book.
Can you go back to that slide where they outline kind of the special, there we go. Oh, and there's the pro tem judges, see? There they are.
It seems like this page should have been in our book.
Madam Chair and Councillor Lindell, so the summarized information for the municipal court is included on page 83. They're included as part of general government. The divisions that are part of general government are all listed out at the top of page 83, and the expenditures are shown in aggregate there. But this detail that we're seeing in the PowerPoint is not included.
And if I may add, Madam Chair, Councilor Lindell, the landscaping contract is mentioned in the budget book on page 79. The third paragraph from the top. Pro tem judges are also listed in there.
Yeah, it looks like all the, everything that's on that slide is right there, third paragraph down. Other questions, Counselor Lindell?
Well, I mean, it's just a little bit psychologically a stumbling block for me, $100,000 of landscaping. I mean, what is it? What do we need? It's more than twice as much as pretty much the pay we've set aside for pro tem judges, more than twice what we've set aside for teen court and the DUI and drug court programs. What is the landscape plan?
So currently, or I should say, prior to this fiscal year, we had not had any landscaping done to the municipal court. So it was overgrown. Again, the issues that AOC brought up were safety issues. This year, we did get funding through our budget, and we went in and we had them come out and clean up all of the dead trees, dead rubbish, clear out old trees that were needing to be removed. And so because there's no other mechanism which would allow us to get assistance on getting any landscaping done, we had to go out on our own and contract somebody to come in and do that. So it would be, if we don't continue to maintain, it's going to go back to that same issue that we are having currently, or we had. And requesting from Parks and Rec, they recommended the amount. So that
So
is
is there, does this involve putting in irrigation and?
we are currently trying to put in the irrigation right now, but it'll be a continual process to maintain it through the years. And that was the other reason for the request as it is.
Okay, I mean, once we've spent these amounts of money, someone's got to pay attention to the irrigation. It won't make it if it doesn't have irrigation. And I don't know whose task that is, but that's a concern.
So the task would have to be assigned to a contractor to come in and check it annually or semi-annually or
Yeah,
quarterly.
probably more than that, and someone needs to task the contractor. I mean. So I'm just saying that because it would be a shame that we spend this kind of money and no one has it as their task to oversee this. Needs to happen.
We've actually been working closely with Parks and Rec and getting their assistance since we are not in the business of doing landscaping. So we've gotten a lot of assistance from them on how to move forward and how to stay up with maintenance for this program.
Okay, thank you.
And just one other question, the 6.2% increase of about $134,847, what accounts for that? On page 83, in the one line item we have on your budget?
So I believe that's for the salary increases that are coming up that the city has granted.
Okay, perfect. That makes sense. All right, other questions from the committee? I think you're good. Thanks. Appreciate it.
Much.
Thank you.
Or two, Chair.
Okay, we are next going to hear from the ITT department. And we have Director Gonzalez with us, and Director, I'll let you introduce whoever might also be speaking, recognizing that there are other people watching on YouTube who may not be familiar with the folks who come in front of us, and welcome. Thank you for being here, and you can take it away.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the Finance Committee. Manuel Gonzalez, the IT Director for the City of Santa Fe. And I'm here to present the proposed FY24 budget for IT. Next slide, please. IT has 5 divisions. The first division is Administrative Operations, which I'm in charge of. We also have end user services, which is EUS. And with us today is EJ Durand, our EUS manager. We also have Enterprise Application Services, and EJ Durand is also the acting manager for EAS. Another division is Infrastructure Services, and Larry Warstel is the manager for what we call NetOps. We also have a new division that we stood up last year. That's a Project Management Office, and Audrey Abeta is the manager for the PMO. Also with us today is our Chief Security Officer and Cybersecurity Manager, Dr. Brad Purdy. Additional staff joining us is our IT Procurement Coordinator, David Tapia, and Project Manager, Joe Abeta, and Project Manager, Jackie Henley. Next, I'm sorry, can you go back to that slide, please? ITT has 44 FTEs and it's showing 10 vacancies. It's actually gone down. We recently hired an admin manager. We also have an offer letter that was accepted for another vacancy. We also have an offer letter out for another vacancy, and we're in the process of selecting 2 positions. We just conducted interviews. So we're hoping by early May, mid-May, we'll be down to 6 vacancies. One thing we're extremely proud of, since 2020, we have promoted 12 IT staff internally. We're extremely proud of that. We've also hired 9 city employees into IT. So we have a career path in IT, and we also have opportunities for other city staff to join the IT team. We also recognize that IT is a male-dominant field. Since 2020, we've increased our female staff from 1 to 8, and one of those offer letters is going to another female. So we're extremely proud of those. Next slide, please. IT's mission is to provide every City of Santa Fe employee with the technical tools necessary to do their job successfully. This encompasses a number of services led by our ITT team. Next slide. The IT department recommended budget is $13.9 million. That's a decrease of 1.9 million. That decrease was one-time expenses from FY 23. The funding supports a 3% salary increase for employees at salaries under $100,000, a 1% salary increase for employees over $100,000. It also supports approximately $2.8 million for purchases of computer hardware, approximately $3.9 million for updates, maintenance, and software licensing, approximately $2 million for voice and data communication charges, and approximately $720,000 for police unit outfitting. Next slide, please. Department highlights. The IT department successfully upgraded the Munis platform, the EnerGov platform, implemented Tyler cash sharing, got our city phone system under federal compliance, implemented multi-factor authentication, and stood up a cybersecurity platform. Continued highlights. Next slide, please. ITT also stood up 5 servers for utilities, utility billing upgrade project. We stood up a level 4 data center, and we're also continuing to build out CSS modules in EnerGov. Next slide, please. IT administrative operations. IT administration supports the ITT division to provide the quality, support, and customer service to our city employees. Next slide. EUS. EUS are the direct connection to our customers. They're the first level of triage. These are our support technicians that are on the field that meet our users. They're the face of IT. They make sure the workstations are working properly, email, phones. They're the staff you see on a daily basis. Next slide. EAS. EAS is crucial to IT to build the division, to build and manage our applications enterprise platform. This is the team that supports our Munis platform, Kronos, and several other platforms. Network and telecommunications. This is what we call our NetOps team. This division is essential to city infrastructure. This team is responsible for design, configuration, installation, support, and maintenance of data, voice, and wireless networks. Next slide. The PMO. The PMO was stood up in the fall of 2021. Now, the PMO was a game changer for the IT department in the city of Santa Fe. Since we've implemented the PMO office, we've been 100% successful in all our projects. They've put in place proper project management methods. And like I said, we're batting 1,000 right now since the PMO has been stood in place. With that, I stand for questions.
Questions from the committee? Councilor Rivera.
I just have a couple questions, Director. Can you talk a little bit more about the upgrade for utility billing and what that will entail?
Madam Chair, Councilor Rivera, I'd have to defer those questions to utilities. They are the product owner and the project lead.
Okay, so that would be a question for the utilities department.
Madam Chair, Councilor Rivera, yes.
Okay. What's an enterprise platform for security cameras?
So, Madam Chair, Councilor Rivera, right now we have multiple camera systems throughout the city that do not communicate with each other. There's several that the IT department can't get into. We've had issues where there's been an incident. We've been called out to pull the footage. We don't have the password. The department doesn't have the password. So we want to implement one camera system throughout this city and create NOCs at the police department, at the fire department, at ITT. It's one system throughout the city.
You mentioned that, and I recall at one point, a security service was monitoring cameras in certain trailheads and parks, I believe, and those resided with the security service. Have we reconciled that situation?
Madam Chair, Council Rivera, that would be departments going out there and procuring these services. And that's what we're trying to get a handle of. We're trying to bring it all into one platform where IT controls.
Right. And then we just heard last night at our council meeting that the legislature had given us money for security cameras at municipal parks. Are we in a position to install and manage those cameras?
So our plan is to put that funding into our enterprise camera security system platform. Right now, our top 3 priorities for cameras is fire, Santa Fe PD, and GCC. Additional funding will help us to install cameras at other facilities.
I think the legislative funding was specific for parks is what I understand.
And we could make sure that funding goes to parks.
All right, that was all I had, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions from the committee? Counselor Cassett.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. I just wanted to confirm, so there's about 720,000 just under for police vehicles. And I'm assuming this is in addition to the money. I don't know how much precisely allocated in the police department's budget. Is that correct?
I'll defer that question to Andy.
Madam Chair, Councilor Cassett, that's correct. This portion is just the IT related uplift cost or upfit costs for police vehicles. So it's for things like, I believe, radios, mobile communications equipment, things of that nature. The actual purchase of the vehicles and most of the equipment like light bars and things like that are in the police department's budget.
Okay. And why is this in IT's budget as opposed to PD?
So, Madam Chair, Councilor Cassett, IT is in charge of outfitting those vehicles, installing the radios, installing the computers. With this funding, we'll be able to outfit 30 new vehicles and refresh 100 new vehicles. Those tasks are assigned to IT.
Okay. And can you tell me a little bit more about the Tyler cashiering upgrade, I believe? I'm having a hard time reading my notes, so I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. Tyler cashiering.
Yes.
Give me more information.
Madam Chair, Councilor Cassett, Tyler cashiering is a module, Tyler Tech module. It's a point of sale module. So we were able to implement that in EnerGov. So all cash revenue that comes in the EnerGov and land use utilizes Tyler cashiering, which automatically goes into Munis. We have applications out there, I believe 15 to 16 platforms out there that are point of sale that bring in revenue that do not communicate with Munis. Tyler cashiering will solve some of those problems. We're looking at installing Tyler cashiering for Santa Fe PD DWI program, which brings in revenue. For fire ambulance runs, which brings in revenue, we're going to install Tyler cashiering in those areas.
Wonderful. So if I'm putting everything together, that should help with some of the challenges that we've had around reconciling cash and helping with month end and year end closes and audits, correct?
Madam Chair, Councilor Cassett, yes.
Wonderful. Very glad to
We
see.
will not be able to resolve all those issues with Tyler cashiering. So we are going to have to build APIs, application program interface for the larger applications like utility billing, parking's real-time solutions.
Okay. Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, Counselor Rivera.
Regard to the police vehicles, these are replacement vehicles, right? I mean, there might be some that are new, but a few of them are replacement. So what do we do with the old computers and the software that we're putting into the new vehicles?
Madam Chair, Councilor Rivera, if I'd have to check with my team, but I believe if the vehicle has met end of life, then the hardware inside it most likely has met end of life.
Even though it's still being used?
Yes, we have equipment out there that's met end of life. It's still being utilized. Our goal is to replace all end of life equipment.
Okay. Thank you. Do we get any credit for probably not for turning that?
I'll have to check with my team and I could get back to you that.
I think EJ is saying no, we don't, so. Thank you.
City Manager Blair, you had wanted to comment on something, and I think I probably wasn't paying enough attention to know when you wanted to interject.
I'll dance wide next time. So
Yeah.
two quick things. One of which is I would be remiss with Director Gonzalez here and most of the senior leadership team to not again speak to the tremendous success of our Munis upgrade. And how there's always small little glitches here and there, but on the whole, it was such a successful upgrade. And it is significant for both, to your point, Councilor Cassett, how we serve the public, how we prepare for audit, how we keep track of our finances. And I think, Councilor Rivera, to your question as well, I want to flag that a lot of what Director Gonzalez and his team are doing now is, first of all, they're kicking and screaming, they're pulling us into the 21st century, right? Which is a big lift. And so there's a lot of projects that need to be done. But what we're doing now is when I get a contract from a department for an IT service at some point, the system is now set up that we make sure that Director Gonzalez has a chance to look at it, review it, his team looks at it to determine if this is a duplicative product that's already being provided, how will it communicate with the existing systems? And so it's both about the success of the individual systems and how they communicate and work together. It's also about saving money for the taxpayers so that we're not wasting hundreds of thousands of dollars on IT projects or programs that already are covered by Munis or Kronos or something else that we already have. And so it's really an extraordinary effort towards efficiency of government. And it's the sort of thing that doesn't land Director Gonzalez or his team on the front page of the New Mexican, but it is an extraordinary thing that is to the great benefit of this city. And I just wanted to make sure I added that.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. I'm glad you did, because I would agree with you. It's not particularly sexy topic, doesn't make the front page of the news, but absolutely critical infrastructure and foundation for us in terms of the financial audit issues we've had and making improvements. And to your point, coming into the 21st century. And Mayor, you're waving your hand.
Using one finger as
Yeah.
opposed to waving and gesticulating. Yeah. Thank you. I want to second what the city manager said. I think what we're seeing with this department is a dramatic transformation in so many different ways. It is a core function of city government. It's a core function of every organization. And I think in the past, it wasn't really given that level of investment or engagement. And today, what this team is doing is really making information technology it's a fundamental tool of the way the city does business. If you think of an organization chart of our government, we still have a number of vertical departments, but the horizontal through lines that connect them all, the first and perhaps most fundamental is information technology and the ability to do our business on a 21st century platform in real time with the ability to manage a significant number of difficult and challenging functions. And I don't think I want to overburden you with anything, but I think it'd be very useful for the public to see, perhaps by the end of this budget process, just what our spending chart looks like over the past 5 to 10 years, what our age of our hardware looks like, what you inherited and where we are now compared to where we were 5 years ago with desktop computers and the technology that was there, the software that was there, the age of the systems. We're really seeing a dramatic modernization and upgrade in all parts of our IT investment program. And it will continue to have to be the case that goes forward. You don't just do it once and declare we are now modern. This is the future of our budget. There will have to be a significant ongoing commitment to IT so that we continue to be able to do business at the front edge of change. And I really do join with the city manager in just telling you what an outstanding job you and your team are doing to modernize and at the same time keep the city functioning without dropping anything along the way. So keep up the good work and keep bringing us updates on all of these programmatic improvements because they are fundamental to our ability to do business going forward.
Thank you.
Great. And I think all that is well-deserved recognition for some of the work that's been going on. I do have a question that we have talked about in past budget hearings, and it's a little delicate. So I just want to make sure that you're feeling like we are doing what is appropriate to be doing, realizing I'm sure there's no end to what you could be doing around cybersecurity, and just making sure that you're feeling fairly comfortable with where we are in that realm and in paying attention to that area, because it is, you know, a 21st century problem. And again, I'm sure you can never do enough, and we're never, you know, completely safe, but just want to have some sense from you that you're fairly comfortable with what we are doing.
Madam Chair, thank you for that question. So I believe it was 2 weeks ago, we had a cybersecurity tabletop. We brought in an individual, Dr. Cherie. He's a world leader in cybersecurity. And he brought valuable information, stuff we already knew and stuff we didn't. And it's not a thing of if you're going to get attacked, it's just when. So we're working really hard to put things in place to keep us secure. And the first one was standing up a cybersecurity team. We also stood up that cybersecurity platform. We implemented multi-factor authentication. There's still other steps we need to put in place to be secure, but you're never secure. They're always 2 steps ahead of you. And it's really scary. And I think the mayor and the city manager attended that tabletop, and it was a holy crap moment for me, and I think everyone else that attended. Even that we know that this is out there and it's happening. So we're working really hard to secure our infrastructure, but we're always behind the bad actors. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry. It's organized crime organizations. There's been several local ransomware attacks here in New Mexico that cost millions and millions of dollars. So one thing we learned is you try not to make it easy for these hackers to get in. If it takes too much effort, they're going to go find someone else. They're looking for easy targets. So we're working really, really hard to stay ahead of the game.
Great, and I appreciate that. And I'm happy to hear there was a tabletop, and that you know, I know this is an area where everyone is vulnerable, even we all as individuals. So happy to hear that you're, you know, as I would expect you to be, well aware of the risk factor and the active work being done to combat it to the best of abilities. So just wanted to kind of hear your thoughts on where things were, and certainly did see some things in your highlights that suggest you're taking it seriously and doing things to protect the system and the city. So appreciate that. A lot of work going on for you.
Madam Chair, I'd like to add a couple more things.
Sure.
We're really excited about what we're doing right now. We're bringing on a new platform for recreation, golf course, and parks. And we're really excited about that. It'll have a communication module, it'll have a registration module, and we're bringing on a platform that checks the box for finance too. So we're really excited about that. And, you know, the mayor said, you know, it's not sexy what IT does, but this is an outward facing platform that the constituents will really see. And I think we're really excited about that. And I'd also like to thank the governing body and the city manager and the mayor to providing the framework for IT to be successful. So I really appreciate that. And I'd like to thank everyone for that.
Terrific. And I think, yeah, I guess I'll leave it there. Councilor Rivera.
Yeah, just one final comment. You know, everything you mentioned is so important, and I appreciate that. But really what I appreciate the most, I think, is the customer service from your department. You always meet up with a friendly face, a smile, people that are always willing to come out and talk to you or call you and have a conversation about anything. Special thanks to the people that help run our meetings, Phil, Ben, Lawrence, Alex, Tenzin. when I've gone into the office with phone issues or computer issues, Melissa, Ramon, Phil Pacheco, Joe and EJ and David that are here with you, have all been just so friendly and just a pleasure to deal with. So, and I don't think it's just because I'm a counselor. These are guys that I've known for a long time, and I think they provide that service to everybody.
Madam Chair, Councilor Rivera, thank you for that. That's one of our goals is customer service. And when we're hiring, we're looking to hire people, not a skill set. We're looking to hire individuals that have this things that we can't teach. And that's hard work, dedication, honesty, and a good attitude. You know, all the other stuff, it could be taught. We have excellent senior staff and leadership at IT that could teach these other things. So we really, really look to hire people, not a skill set. And I think that's why you see that great customer service skill.
Yeah, Edward Romero is another one that I saw here at City Hall. Just watching them interact with city staff is it's a pleasure to see. It really is.
Madam Chair, Councilor Rivera, thank you for that. I'm the only grumpy one at IT, so.
Counselor Cassett.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. Just to piggyback off that, I think it's important for anybody in the public listening to know what a heavy lift it is to do these hybrid meetings where it's virtual and in person. We have to stream to TV, we have to stream to radio, and the amount of accessibility that gives the public to our meetings to participate in local government. And it seems simple because we don't see everything that's going on behind the scenes, but I really want to thank your team for all of that work. I know that it was not easy to both figure out how to do this, and then it does take a lot of staff time to be able to staff each meeting and all the committee meetings to really give people that access. And so I think it's really important that the public understands that the increased access to city government that, of course, arose out of COVID, but it was one of those things that we decided to take with us, is extremely dependent on the work of IT. And I know the city's clerk's office also has quite a role in there. So I really just want to recognize that and thank you all, because I know it's something that is very much appreciated by our constituents.
Madam Chair, I didn't mean to leave Larry out. He's just sitting away from the group. So I just noticed him over there. He's not with the rest of the group, but no.
Madam Chair, Councilor Cassett, thank you for that. And you forgot Larry because he's another grumpy one. But I don't appreciate IT staff laughing that hard at my grumpy joke. So I'd also like to thank Councilor Lindell for giving me a hall pass. I really appreciate it. I owe you.
Okay, I think we don't have any more questions. Thank you for your work, and thanks for being here today. Really appreciate it. And thanks to your team. All right, we have next Human Resources and Director Bernadette Salazar. And Bernadette, I'm going to let you introduce your team as you need to as you go through your budget. And I'll give you a minute or two to get settled as we transition between one group and another. So yesterday we were trying hard to fit everybody in the time we have, and today we're just clipping along. So interesting how different budgets require different things. So appreciate everybody being here and welcome.
Okay. Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. I'm Bernadette Salazar, the HR Director. And with me today is my team, some of my team members, Ashley Barella, Assistant HR Director, Alvin Valdez, Wellness and Benefits Supervisor, Monica Acevedo, HR Supervisor, and Lillian Maestas, our Administrative Manager. Also with us today is Todd Burley, our Aon representative, who is here to answer any questions when we talk about our insurance renewals.
Great. Welcome, everybody.
So, and I'd also like to recognize the rest of the HR team who's done tremendous work accomplishing great things this fiscal year. As you all know, the HR world has changed tremendously in the last few years. We've gone from a pandemic, the Great Resignation. I believe that our team has handled all these changes with compassion, agility, and grace. I'm very grateful to work with such a talented team. So thank you to the ones also who are not with us right now. For FY23, so far we've continued to work on COVID compliance and resources for employees. And we have worked tremendously on enhancing our recruitment and retention efforts. And I'll talk a little bit more in detail about that. And to City Manager Blair's point and Director Gonzalez, HR was instrumental in the HCM upgrade, the Munis HCM upgrade for HR modules. And I'll talk about some of those details as well. So with regard to recruitment and retention, in response to the Great Resignation that affects most organizations in our country, we've continued to improve our hiring process. Last fiscal year, we reported that we set a new service level standard for HR to release what we call lists of eligible applicants. That's the list of qualified applicants that hiring departments receive upon the closing date of a job announcement. So last year we set our standard and we were 93% compliant in ensuring that hiring departments receive that list within 3 days of the closing date. So far this fiscal year, we've increased that number to ensure that approximately 97% of our jobs that close, the hiring department is getting their list of eligible applicants within 3 days. So it helps them hire people quickly. We've also streamlined our task list as far as what's required for the hiring process and put it in a very nicely packaged package, if you will, for hiring departments and their administrative managers, and some service level dates on those as well. For example, who's required to do what by what date, and that helps the hiring process stay on track for more timely hires. That the packet also includes a recruitment planning worksheet. So with this planning worksheet, hiring departments can really set some time aside and allocate some time to ensure that we have time to do interviews and all the things that need to happen. We've also instituted a checklist for administrative support personnel to ensure that they have everything they need to move forward with the hiring. We offered lots of training sessions on this, and these resources are also posted on our citywide intranet. So when we have new hires, they're familiar with the process and they have the tools to complete their jobs. The other thing that we're really proud about, and this is something that has helped us recruit really qualified candidates and retain some of our highly qualified candidates who maybe were on the verge of leaving the city, is we implemented a total compensation document. And I am going to give an example of this. Because the city offers such great benefits, we are able to provide applicants of this information, and basically we let them know your base salary is whatever the hiring department is offering, but then we go into great detail about the benefits offered to include leave, insurance, retirement. And so, for example, with an AFSCME covered position of a base salary of $30,000 a year, $30 an hour, the base salary would be $62,400, and the estimated benefits would be approximately $53,000, or a total compensation of over $115,000. So being able to provide this information to applicants or employees who are considering leaving really gives them the insight of what the total compensation is to be an employee at the city. So we're happy that that's been developed. We have also instituted monthly meetings to go over the vacancy details with departments and to assist in any way possible to help them get them filled. Since the beginning of this fiscal year, through March 31st, we've posted 517 jobs. We've processed 2,743 applications, and we've had 191 new hires. This does not include temporary employees. We've also had 99 promotions so far, and we've processed about 3,000 personnel actions. Since July through now, we've hosted a couple of hiring events, which we have found to be very successful. With these two hiring events that we hosted, we were able to offer 20 on-the-spot job offers. And this really has helped departments that were struggling with particular classifications to get their vacancies filled very quickly. With all these efforts and the assistance with the HR team and hiring departments, we've been able to reduce our vacancy rate, which was 25% in July, down to 21% as of March 31st. We've hired over 100 employees from July 1st through March 31st in this fiscal year. So a lot going on with recruitment and retention, but those are some of the upgrades that we've made. As I mentioned, with regard to the Munis HCM upgrade, we were instrumental in the HR modules. So the HR team conducted all the trainings in-house, which equated to 71 individual training sessions for a total of 103 training hours before our go live date. So that was really good. We received a lot of positive comments, and we feel that our department users are very knowledgeable in the system with the upgrade. With regard to employee health and wellness, we have offered 37 health and wellness activities, resulting in 677 employees participating beginning this fiscal year through the end of March. We're also happy to announce that we implemented a diabetes prevention program, and our enrollment is going good, and the status is going really good with that as well. So far, we have about 35 enrollees, and the progress is being made. As far as training and development, so far we've offered 190 training sessions for a total of 361 training hours for this fiscal year. This includes partnering with the Santa Fe Community College on supervisory training and leadership series training skills as well. So as far as our fiscal year 24 recommended budget, on the next slide. Yes, please. As you can see, our budget has decreased, and this was due to the one-time expenses that were funded last year for the retention and hiring incentives. And also the allocation for union increases, I believe, were in the HR budget. So those have been, those one-time funding allocated to HR are not there this year. That's why we see the decrease. We are happy to see and request the 1.2 million for the completion of the classification and compensation study. This is the year that we will implement, and this is in accordance with the AFSCME agreement as well. So we are entering into the second phase, which will actually be the compensation study. We're just about done wrapping up the classification phase of the study. And so the funding to finish the compensation piece is also being requested this year. And I'll move on to the insurance health increases. As I mentioned, Todd Burley is here from Aon. And we presented to the finance committee, I believe it was last finance committee, explaining that we'd been meeting with the benefits advisory committee. The recommended increase was 0.5%. So the fire union agreed to the 0.5%. increase in premiums, and AFSCME non-union police union would have the 6.5 that was required from last year. And then the 0.5% this year, which is equal to a 7% this year increase in premiums. So we have that presentation. We can recirculate that if you'd like, but it is the same one that was presented at the last Finance Committee. And with that, I stand for any questions.
Great, thank you. Questions from the committee? Counselor Lindell.
Thank you, Chair. Welcome, everyone. I just have a couple of really quick questions. In the recommended budget, there's $1.2 million to fund citywide employee salary increases that may potentially be recommended by the class and comp study. How'd we come up with that number?
Madam Chair, Counselor Lindell, thank you for that question. The last time we looked at our class and comp study, which was implemented in 2019, 1.5 million was allocated, and the class and comp study had not been implemented within city government in at least 15 years. So it's a little bit lower than the first time, but it was an estimate based on what we found last time. So it was really based on the study last time.
That makes a lot of sense. When do you think the class and comp study will be done?
Madam Chair, Counselor Lindell, I believe that it will be done by December. We're anticipating that it'll be earlier than December of 2023, but we will say December as our deadline.
Okay, thank you. To just deviate off from the real business at hand here, I think you have a member of your staff here that's going to be retiring soon. True? I want to say thank you. I've been dealt with you many, many times, and every time it's been an absolute pleasure, and we're going to miss you tremendously. You've been a real part of this family, and we wish you well. Yeah, go out and enjoy. Thank you.
Madam Chair, if I may,
Yes.
we're really happy for Lillian. She will be retiring. Her last day is next week. We will be sending out a celebration notice. So we're trying really hard to put on a brave face and be happy, but we're really, truly going to miss her. She's been amazing.
Thank you. Counselor Rivera.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just wanted to say thank you to Lillian as well. I know she commutes from Mora every day. No, Rivera, far enough away. It's a great, great for you to spend that much time commuting, and I enjoyed working with you when I was in the fire department, and then now as a counselor as well. So good luck to you, and please enjoy retirement. Ms. Salazar, first, can you just explain to me how the hiring process works kind of from beginning to end, from a person filling out an application to then where it goes in the process? Because I'm asking because I think everyone assumes that you see it from beginning to actual hiring, and I don't think that's the case.
Yes, Madam Chair, Counselor Rivera, thank you for the question. I'll give a summary of that. And so basically what happens is a department has a vacancy and they will request to advertise the position. They determine the length of time. The AFSCME contract dictates the timing for AFSCME covered positions. So we make sure that they're in compliance with that. And then the request gets sent to HR, and it has to be approved by HR and budget to ensure that the position is available and funded according to what they believe. And once it's approved, then it gets posted on our city website. Applicants are able to apply through the closing date. And when I was talking earlier about the list of eligible applicants or the LOEs, once the job closes, an HR analyst who is assigned to that department will look at all the applications, determine if the minimum qualifications are met. And if they are, they will be placed on a list of eligible applicants, and that list is sent to the hiring department within 3 business days from that closing date. Then the hiring department, let me back up. Anyone who doesn't qualify, the HR analyst will inform those applicants that they did not meet the minimum qualifications and point them to other job opportunities that they may be interested in. Then the hiring department then is responsible for interviews and then making a recommendation. Once the recommendation is made, we look at what the salary that's budgeted and ensuring that it complies with union agreements and our rules and regulations. And they initiate a personnel action, and that personnel action goes from the hiring department to HR, to the budget team, finance director, and finally the city manager. And it sounds like a long process, but with our new technology, we're able to do that electronically, so it can happen within an hour. If people are there clicking and waiting for information to come to their box. And then at that point, when the department makes the recommendation to hire, HR will send out a contingent offer as long as it's within the approved budget. And once the personnel action form is complete, they get their notice of when they're going to start employment.
So after the list of eligibles is created, it goes over to the department requesting the position.
Yes, that's
So their responsibility is to do reference checks, whatever else is needed to make sure that they're okay to hire.
Madam Chair, Councilor Rivera, yes, that's correct.
Okay, and the reason I ask is because I think HR gets blamed a lot for taking so long to hire, and I think there's shared responsibility there, and just wanted to kind of bring that out. So thank you for that. With regard to the 3% salary increase and the 1% for people making different, over 100,000 and less than 100,000 per year. We've tried that before, and we've always come into the situation where, it's inevitable that somebody's at 99,000 and they're going to get a 3% increase, and a person that's been here longer than them, that's maybe making 2,000 more at just over 100, then gets 1% and is bypassed by the person with less time in service. And City Manager Blair talked about these bans and all these other things going on. So I assume that's been looked at and that we're not going to run into any situations.
Madam Chair, Councilor Rivera, we did look at that, and there will be some that are close, but we didn't see any that would actually cause compaction with, say, for example, a police captain and a police lieutenant. They will be, not those in particular per se, but there will be some that could be close, but there won't be like true compaction.
It seems like, so there's quite a bit amount, 703,000 for hiring retention incentives for first responders in fire and police. And you just sent out the vacancy report, which looks like we have vacancies throughout the city, in some areas, much more than fire and police. So are we looking at retention bonuses for them, or even hiring incentives for other departments that really need it?
Madam Chair, Councilor Rivera, I think we've looked at particular classifications when we see a lot of vacancies or lack of response to advertisements. in particular classifications, for example, lifeguards. We did a hiring incentive for temporary lifeguards last year. So I think we look at them on a case by case, and we can look at that in collaboration with the city manager and finance director.
Okay. With regards to the classing and comp study, it's been a while since, it's taken a while to finish this second part, and I thought this part would have been a lot faster. So can you explain why it's taken so long?
Madam Chair, Councilor Rivera, that's a really good question. I think so we broke it out into 2 phases this time, and I think the last one, I came in at the tail end, and we were in dire need before we engaged in the first phase of revamping our job descriptions. And so that's taken a long time. We have a lot of unique job descriptions. Typically, a city of our size doesn't have as many as we do, so we've got to sort through a lot. We didn't have the response that we would have liked to see on the position description questionnaires, where people are required to fill them out. So it helps us reshape our job descriptions. So based on what we did get, and doing some research and working with the supervisors, trying to really revamp those job descriptions has been very challenging. So that's what's taken a lot of time.
Right. And how much have we paid into this already? And is the 100,000 the final payment?
Madam Chair, Councilor Rivera, we have paid 60,000 so far total. We will definitely ensure that the second phase is done within the 100,000.
And I think when we first started this process, there were several of us, myself, Councilwoman Villarreal. I know there were other councilors that had asked about, while we're doing this, to do a gender analysis to see if women were making as much as men in similar positions. Is that part of this? Have we looked at that?
Madam Chair, Councilor Rivera, that's a really good question, and that is absolutely part of our scope of work with the compensation phase of it. And so we will absolutely be looking at that.
Great. And with so much discussion, and we're finally providing Spanish speaking services here, I think some American Sign Language services in the past. I think it's more and more important that people speak the dual language. And I know we have many bilingual people within the city. I believe some of the contracts have bilingual incentive pay, but do they all have it, and are they all equal? And then do we offer any kind of incentive for non-union?
Madam Chair, Councilor Rivera, that's another really good question. It is in the police union contract in AFSCME. We don't have a policy for non-union. However, we have discussed that because it has been raised several times. You know, if we explore that, I would imagine we'd explore that with the fire union as well.
So fire doesn't have a bilingual pay incentive?
Not in their collective bargaining agreement.
What about AFSCME?
They do.
And are they equal with PD as far as how much is being paid out for bilingual pay?
Madam Chair, Councilor Rivera, they are not. The police union contract does have 2 levels. So it's the first level is a little bit lower, but it's more conversational, whereas the second tier is a higher rate, but it requires reading, writing, and speaking.
So AFSCME doesn't, they only have the conversational piece,
That's correct.
not the reading and writing.
Yes.
So if they were to negotiate that, well, I'm not gonna get into that, but okay. You guys, do you have a budget for contract negotiations?
Madam Chair, Councilor Rivera, we do not have a consultant for contract negotiations.
So you're just doing it part of your normal business?
Yes.
And then I read some stuff in here, and just curious as to really what they are, but a performance management program, what does that entail?
Madam Chair, Councilor Rivera, With the new Munis HCM HR upgrade, one of the modules allows for a performance management system that's a little more user-friendly than the paper management system that I believe was used several years ago. So we would like to build that module out and make sure that we have real-time communication from supervisors to employees on performance.
And then lastly, I didn't realize that we had a diabetes prevention program. Can you just talk about that a little bit?
Madam Chair, Councilor Rivera, yes, we, about a month ago, what date was it, Elvin? In March, we launched a diabetes prevention program with a company called Omada. And what that is people who are pre-diabetes, not diagnosed with diabetes, but almost there or are in fear of that. They take a little quiz. It's totally confidential. So the HR team doesn't have any of that information. We just get sheer numbers. But really what it is a health coach to help people make different lifestyle changes to help prevent diabetes, the onset of diabetes. So it's been really good. We got our first report from Omada giving us numbers, and we have, like I said, about 30, a little over 30 enrollees. And based on their book of business, for a city of our size, they said that our enrollment rates are really good, and the response that they're getting, there's weekly check-ins, sometimes daily, depending on what the employee needs. So it's from exercise, eating, there's recipe tips, it's the full menu of everything healthy. So it's good for our employees.
Keto's part of that?
But carrots are. Your carrots are.
Madam Chair.
Madam Chair, can I just piggyback on that for 1 second?
Sure.
Because I think the story behind the program is very cool, but the story behind the program is also cool. And I think a lot of it revolves around data analysis, working with our friends who are keeping track of our benefits programs and spotting what is a very significant cost to the city in one particular category and then taking action to address it. I don't know whether you or Mr. Burley or somebody wants to talk about it, but there really is this wasn't just something that happened by accident. Our folks were looking at data and health and cost as well as the human cost and took an intervention in this direct area.
Madam Chair, Mr. Mayor, yes, diabetes is a problem for every organization in New Mexico and nationwide. It was brought to our attention through some Cigna utilization reports. And Omada is a nationally known provider of diabetic services. They guarantee a return on investment above what is paid for the program. So we thought it would be a perfect fit for the city of Santa Fe.
Is the start of the program based on A1C or is it some other?
I believe it's A1C plus some BMI and some other factors.
There's been some studies about the A1C maybe a great predictor of diabetes.
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions, Councilor Cassett?
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. And also before I forget, I really do want to recognize Elaine and thank you so much. And you've always been just such a pleasure to work with. And whenever I've had questions or had to make major changes, I really appreciate you really guiding me through those processes. So thank you so much and best of luck to you. Councilor Rivera, I'm really happy you brought up the diabetes prevention program. Actually, before I went to get my degree in public health, I was a health coach. So I was really excited to see that this is something that the city is bringing. And I was curious if there are other topics or areas or health issues that we might expand to? I know obviously it was a different company, but when I was health coaching, we did tobacco cessation, we did stress management, some just kind of general health and wellness to really get that prevention rolling. So I'm curious if there might be opportunity to expand to some of these other places, especially when I think about mental health and how much we have seen challenges in mental health after COVID. It's really just become something that we are seeing, bless you, that we are seeing community-wide across the nation. So both, is there an opportunity to expand or what are some of the employee wellness pieces that we are doing in the mental health realm right now?
Madam Chair, Councillor Cassett, that's a great question. We definitely we meet with Cigna weekly, and we talk about how things are going. And so there's definitely opportunities to expand. I know I blurted out a whole bunch of numbers earlier, but some of them were related to Elvin's wellness initiatives. So I will ask him to come and talk about some of the things that he's offered through those programming to include mental health and we call it a roadshow that we did for employees, letting them know what all resources they have as a city employee relative to mental health. So I'll let him speak a little bit about it.
Wonderful. Thank you. Hi, Alvin.
Madam Chair and Councillor Cassette. We do mental health trainings for each and every employee in departments. We have an employee assistant program, which offers 3 free counseling services to every single employee. At the beginning of each month, they reach out to us. We give them a number of our current employee population. And from that population, we ensure that we have 3 counseling sessions for all of our employees. Then once an employee chooses to use that service, then they can continue it on a regular basis. And it could be anywhere from a small copay to free, depending on the provider. We try to do every month, we try to have healthy challenges and fitness. We do all kinds of trainings to where people can become aware of our offerings for our wellness program. They are there, but we are always open to new items and growing our program because our employee health is number one to us.
Wonderful. Thank you. I'm really very happy to see such a focus here. And I know that sometimes employee wellness, people think it's kind of fluff, but as you said, that really is the basis that we need to make sure that our staff are doing well, both physically and mentally, in order to, succeed in their jobs, but also just we want to take care of our people. So thank you so much for that work. I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
I also wanted to get asked about the updated performance management program. Sorry, going through my. A policy regarding mandatory employee training. I don't believe did we cover that yet? Would you mind expanding on what that looks like?
Yes, of course. Madam Chair, Councillor Cassett, we have a lot of really good training sessions that we offer employees. What we'd like to do is formalize that and have it be an administrative policy coming from our city manager, who he has expressed his total support for that, which would include topics such as diversity, prevention of workplace violence, prevention of harassment, some safety training, and this would be required of all employees across the board, and then within a certain time frame for all of our new hires to ensure that they receive the appropriate training in a timely fashion upon hire.
Wonderful. And then we do also offer programs to help people advance in their career, correct? Can you provide more information on those?
Madam Chair, Councillor Cassett, yes, absolutely. We have a tuition assistance program, which is staying intact. And we do have people who apply for that. They get time for their classes and then financial support to pay for classes that will help them be eligible for promotions or any type of upgrades in their jobs.
Thank you. Do we happen to have any trainings on, as we think about how people progress, they might be very good at their job, and the technicalities of their job, but perhaps they haven't had any training in management. And so as people want to progress into, being in a supervisory or management role, do we provide any assistance to support them in gaining some managerial skills that they may not have?
Madam Chair, Counselor Cassett, we absolutely have talked about that. We did work with the community colleges, as I stated earlier, and we offer leadership classes. If someone who is not a supervisor requests to enroll in those courses, we would absolutely allow them. And we've now introduced the level 2. But that is a good point when we talk about succession planning, and somebody who might be interested. There's definitely, in my previous role prior to the city, we did do training. It was titled, "So You Want to Be a Supervisor?" And it was kind of like a mentorship program where we give scenarios and it was like a multi-week process where we would have discussions and we would give some basic training, but have a lot of discussion about what it really means to be a leader and a supervisor.
Great. I mean, I know that you guys have a lot on your plate, but looking into the future, I think that would be something that would be really beneficial for employees who want to advance, as well as employees who will be working under individuals who have advanced, to really create that cohesiveness in the city. Real quick, I saw that salaries and wages decreased from the mid-year budget by 46.7%. What accounts for that decrease? Does this have to do with some of the bonuses that we gave out last year and those not being there this year?
Madam Chair, Counselor Cassett, yes, that was the retention incentives, the new hire incentives, and then the allocation for AFSCME for FY23.
Okay, so we did that higher raise last year. Okay. Wonderful. I don't think I have any other questions, but thank you all so much for being here. The HR it's a challenging field. There's a lot of legality that comes into it that I don't think everybody understands, all the different processes that have to be followed, and really how you make the hiring process more equitable and as smooth as possible. So I really appreciate hearing about some of the changes that are happening as you continue to work to look at how we streamline things, utilizing new technology, working with the departments. And thank you so much for sending this vacancy report. Obviously, haven't had a chance to dig into it, but I look forward to doing so. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I have a couple questions. On page 86 on your expenditures summary, the other operating costs went up 16.8% and something like 66,000. What is that? 66,583.
Madam Chair, give me just a second.
Yeah, no worries.
I'm at that stage where I'm switching from.
I recommend progressives.
I tried. This is not working.
You tried? Oh. I could also ask Alvin a question while you look. Oh, here's Andy to the rescue.
Madam Chair,
Mr. Hopkins, sorry.
yeah, that's fine. Madam Chair, that was primarily in the categories of advertising, dues, and services of other departments, which are their internal service charges for things like fleet, IT, well, maybe not fleet. I don't know if HR has any fleet vehicles, but IT, HR, payroll, that sort of thing.
Okay.
Not HR, but obviously, but payroll, other finance services that, are spread among all departments.
Okay, terrific. I want to go back to the free counseling, 3 sessions per month, and you can continue them with a copay. I didn't quite understand that. Can you elaborate? So is it every month, every employee has access to 3 free counseling sessions? And if you wanted more than that, then you would have a copay? Or maybe explain it again, because I'm not sure I got it.
Madam Chair, sorry, I was unclear on that. Yes, so each employee has 3 free sessions and they can use them as they need. If they choose to use them, and then once their 3 free sessions are done, they have access to the same counselors. It would just be a copay. And we found that some of those providers choose to do it without the copay and it becomes free.
Okay, and that's 3 every month they have access to. So like if you had 3 and maybe one month you didn't use it and the next month something happened and you really needed that, or how does that work? Or is it 3 for the year? Or I'm confused about the time frame.
Sorry, it is 3 for the fiscal year, but once you use your 3, you still have access to it via the copay. So there isn't a limit on it once you use your 3 free sessions.
Okay, that helps. Thank you. I had the time frame incorrect. Great. And as long as you're here, I do think the things that you do in your job role are super important. And I think, as Councilor Cassett said, we obviously care about our employees because they're the central piece of government and they help us be productive, and we're also self-insured. And so we care very much for a number of reasons. And I just want to thank you for, I see your emails come across. Sometimes I wish I had time to participate in some of the activities that you offer for city employees, and maybe someday I will. So thank you.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Okay, and then I just wanted to go over let's go back to class and comps. So let's see, where did I write this down? I think you said, here we go. So we have something like $1.2 million for salary increases that may be called for as a result of the class and comps study. And you said you think that study will probably be done by the end of December, which is the calendar year, but 6 months into the new fiscal year. So are those salaries, the idea is they would be implemented in the second half of the fiscal year and only for half of the fiscal year? Or how do you see that 1.2 being distributed over what time frame?
Madam Chair, I would say that once the study is complete, I think December is our absolute deadline. It could be sooner than that. We would, once the study is out, we would do a presentation. We would also have to work with our unions because we can't just implement it across the board for union employees. So that will also take some time. But my hope would be that once that was for non-union, upon approval, it would come back to the governing body. And then upon agreement with the unions, my hope that it would be, maybe the first full pay period in January, if it's done a little bit sooner than December. So that would be my hope. So that's what we will strive for.
And I guess so then the question would be, the 1.2 is budgeted for half of the fiscal year because you won't kick in until halfway through, right? And I don't know, you mentioned that when I think it was Councilor Lindell asked, how did we arrive at the $1.2 million number, which is a great question. And you said the last one was about 1.5. Was it 1.5 for the full fiscal year or the half the fiscal year? And when you're thinking about this 1.2, it sounds like it's, we won't get to the point of making salary corrections until halfway through. So it's with the idea that it's going to be spent, it's like half a year's budget, essentially.
Madam Chair, yes, that's correct. So the last time we implemented it was at the beginning of a fiscal year. We will need to ensure we account for associated benefits because anytime we add to the salary, there are salary dependent benefits that we need to account for. So it would be that as well. but it would be essentially for half a fiscal year.
Okay, and so the 1.5, the first time we funded, the last time we funded the class and comps, was that for a full fiscal year or only for 6 months? So it makes me wonder if 1.2 is enough money.
Madam Chair, it was 1.5 for the full fiscal year. Last time.
Okay. So now 1.2 actually would suggest it's more money. So I was, okay. And I think we heard yesterday, there was concern about some salaries in the land use department, the level of salaries and whether they're competitive. The class and comp study, takes land use as part of the class and comp study, correct?
Madam Chair, yes, that's correct. And in talking with our consultant, we, they will benchmark classifications, but they will, we have discussed our difficult to fill positions. Engineers is one that always comes up. So we will be looking closely at those ones as well.
Okay. And there are, I think it was brought up and I put the finance director on the spot and she didn't want to steal your thunder. So sorry, she let you be on the hot seat, but just want to get your thoughts, comments about the importance, well, I guess what other factors go into higher salary increases? You mentioned benefits. Besides competitiveness, like there were lateral considerations with the kind of the level of employee, perhaps maybe years of service, things that you need to be comparing, not just within land use, but across like a similar level position in other departments is the way I guess I would maybe characterize that. And maybe I'm not speaking human resources speak, but maybe you can, kind of help us understand some of the factors that go in, not just, the market considerations.
Madam Chair, that's a really good question. There are a lot of factors. It's experience, education, seniority, budget, union agreements. So some of our union agreements actually dictate what the salary will be. And it can't be, for example, someone with more seniority can't make less than someone with less seniority in particular situations. So there's a thorough evaluation that has to happen for any type of salary adjustment or a new hire salary. So it requires that.
And so when we get to the point of implementing the class and comp study, that analysis will be done on top of, or maybe the class and comp study does that as well, but, or maybe it doesn't. Maybe maybe educate me. The class and comp study looks only at market conditions, or does it look at all this other stuff?
Madam Chair, in talking with the consultant, I did let them know of our collective bargaining requirements, so they will look at that. But that discussion really happens with the unions at the point where the analysis is done by the consultant.
Okay. And I guess, I ask these questions because it would seem that this committee tinkering with those things ahead of that information might be not in our best interest as a whole.
Madam Chair, I would recommend that we wait for the compensation piece. I know we've done some adjustments, for example, the parks maintenance workers, and I fully supported that. I believe that helped us hire more people and will continue to help us hire in those vacancies. But I think at this point, we should wait for the compensation phase to be completed because we're very close.
Okay. And you spoke about this with the other counselors. So when you say the compensation side, so the classification part was the part you were saying was very difficult because that was we were redoing our job descriptions, and that's the classifications part. And that part is almost done. And then they'll move to the other side, which is the compensation part, which would be looking at these things that we're talking about in terms of market conditions and other factors that go into what a salary level should be.
Madam Chair, yes, that's correct.
Okay. Thank you. That's helpful. Let me just look at. I think those were my questions. So I really just looking through my notes here. Other questions from the committee? Counselor Cassett.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. I want to follow up on class and comp and if there is a interaction between class and comp and the, what did you call it? The total compensation. So when the class and comp study is being done, does that total compensation come into play? Or is it
Madam
just like
Chair.
straight hourly rate?
Madam Chair, Counselor Cassett, we can do an additional comparison on our benefits. I think that's maybe what you're asking, because that would be included in the total compensation. We opted not to really dive in a lot of detail with our benefits because we can benchmark those ourselves internally and save the city some money. And we know that our benefits package is, really good for the state of New Mexico and probably in the Southwest region. But we can absolutely do that at a later time if we needed to.
Okay. And then with total compensation in terms of how it's calculated, when we are looking at what benefits, for example, to put the dollar amount on it, do we essentially say the city pays this much per person and that is a dollar amount that gets added, or how much we match for PERA? Is that, am I understanding how the calculation would come about?
Madam Chair, Counselor Cassett, you're exactly right. We put what the city contributes to every particular line item. And then on the document that we developed, it actually goes into detail for the either applicant or employee to know what that actually means. Like, what is PERA? Someone coming from out of state might not know what that is. So we go into detail explaining what that is.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Other questions? Counselor Rivera.
Yeah, thank you, Director Salazar. You said we offered, or we made some adjustments to the lifeguard salaries?
Madam Chair, Counselor Rivera, yeah, we did a hiring incentive last year, even if they were temporary employees, because we were really pressed for hiring lifeguards, and their salaries did go up. I believe we have the trainees now, and I can get the exact information, but I want to say they're starting at 15 for the trainee level.
Did that negatively affect the class and comp study?
Madam Chair, Counselor Rivera, no, I don't think so. And especially because lifeguards are in need across the country, I think, right now.
And then there are people in many departments, I think your shop's one especially, where no one's part of the collective bargaining agreement, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
So there are other departments that have managers, people at higher levels that aren't part of the collective bargaining agreement, that adjustments could be made without having to go through the union process?
Madam Chair, Counselor Rivera, their salary adjustments can be made, but our rules are very specific as to when a salary increase can occur. So we would still have to ensure compliance with those rules.
What are those rules, if you know off the top of your head?
Madam Chair, Counselor Rivera, the ones that come to mind are promotions. I believe that there's a reclassification, and I can get you all the rules that pertain to any type of adjustments.
Well, how'd you do the one with lifeguards, since it wasn't promotion or any of those? It was a difficult to hire position.
Madam Chair, Counselor Rivera, it was still within the range and a hard to fill position. There is also a rule for retention in the rules and regs for non-union employees to ensure that we're retaining people if they have offers somewhere else.
If you had a job opening that was open for 10 weeks and nobody applied, would that be considered a difficult, or would that be something that would trigger you to look at what's happening there? Or maybe you had somebody that you've had 10 people apply, but no one really wanted to take the position or went to a different place. Does that trigger you or the department to look at things a little differently?
Madam Chair, Counselor Rivera, yes, absolutely. So when we have our monthly department meetings and we see that maybe the job closed and there was no one who met the minimum qualifications, oftentimes we'll work with the department to look at what are those minimum qualifications and can they be amended, making sure we're in compliance if there's any statutes that require certification. But if we can amend them to widen our pool, or is it the pay? Do we need to look at, what the range is? Do we need to evaluate what the scope of the work is and reevaluate? So that process takes place.
And that would come from you or from the department or both?
It could come from either, but we really have those discussions during our monthly meetings.
All right. And did you know I saw Ashley at a soccer game and she tried to kick me? Just saying.
Uh-oh.
You took funny pills today, Counselor. The city manager wanted to weigh in. I don't know at what point, maybe I didn't see you right in the moment, but here you are.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I kept a list as it went. So you all have been very kind to say nice things about Lillian's retirement. I actually told her she couldn't leave, and that didn't work, but we are grateful for her and are sad to see her go. I want to flag about real quick, a couple quick things. One of which is the discussion around total compensation. We actually have seen in multiple instances in this last fiscal year, I now call Ashley the benefits assassin. Our directors, when they are trying to hire senior staff in particular, they come with this notion of, no, we have to pay more, we have to pay more, we have to pay more, we have to go above the range. They push as hard as they can with this doomsday scenario of, if we don't pay more than we can do, then we're never going to get this person. And there's been multiple instances where a very calm and a very cool and collected Ashley gets on the phone with this candidate and says, well, let me actually explain to you how, even though the salary may be not quite as much as you wanted to, your income is going to go up and you're going to have more for retirement. And so the total compensation conversation really has become a really valuable tool in the tool belt for the department to talk about how, why people should come work for us. And that's not even factoring in what we haven't talked about, but the remote work policy that we have that HR took the lead in implementing really continues to be a draw for employees. I was at the Easter egg hunt and one of our newer employees pulled me aside and said, I have to be honest, part of the reason I took the job was because of your remote work policy. And so compensation is always important, but what we're realizing is the way in which we sell the city and the way the HR team sells coming to work for the city is one of many, many things that makes this such a great place to work. I want to flag something that I know that Director Salazar and I have worked on quite a bit, or talked a lot about, is how do we break this conventional wisdom or this notion that everyone just accepts in city government that it's HR's fault. It's not. And it's the easy place, every government agency I've worked in that has more than 30 or 40 employees, the default is to blame HR. And it's what people do here. And what we learn and what Director Salazar and I have tried to do is, when I get the HR team in whatever department, fill in the blank department, in the same room to talk about these frustrations of, well, why aren't you getting more people in the door? Sometimes it's my fault, sometimes it's HR's fault, but sometimes it's the department's fault as well. HR will give documentation back to a department director and they'll say, whenever you fill this out and get it back to us, we can post the job. And months go by. And a heated department director will come back and scream, I can't get these positions filled and I don't know what's going on in HR. And when we sit down, a very calmer, cooler, collected Director Salazar or Barella will say, well, if you remember that email that we sent you in January, gave you all the paperwork, when you fill it out and get it back to us, we can post it today. Oh, okay. And so what we have talked about has been trying to figure out what data can we pull? What can we do? I know Director Salazar had some data in her presentation today, but what reality can we introduce into this conversation so that we break that notion that it's the fault? What I did want to say from top to bottom within the department is the level of kindness and support that everyone on the HR team gives to everyone in city government. Smiles on their faces, kindness, speed, responsiveness. And I would be remiss as well if I didn't say the extraordinary job the entire team did with the Munis upgrade as well. They were leading the voluntary training for their own team, making sure that things that didn't go as smoothly when we upgraded the last time didn't happen again. And they really were such an asset in making sure that this was such a smooth transition. And so I just wanted to make sure that we are, for every hit they take and for every complaint they get, I want to make sure they get all the credit for the great work they're doing. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Appreciate that. And I also thank you for bringing up the remote work policy. I can imagine that that is very important, particularly post-pandemic. The work day has changed, the nature of work has changed, how we handle that policy and that opportunity, I think, absolutely critical for having the people we need and being able to function in kind of a new normal. So appreciate that and for you bringing that to kind of present of mind. I don't have any other questions, Councilor Cassett.
I just wanted to follow up on what City Manager Blair just mentioned about data. This crosswalk was really helpful because it does say things like sent LOE to department on, January 23rd and, have not received the recommendation. So I found this to be really helpful and interesting to see, kind of what this process looks like, what hasn't been posted. There are some that say, no applicant or no eligibles or the department wants to repost. So just in terms of some kind of broader data for us to see and understand, I found this to be really helpful. So thank you again for putting this together.
Thank you for being here and thank you to your team. Appreciate it. And good luck with retirement. That sounds wonderful. Someday maybe I'll try that. Okay. We have one more. We are clipping along this afternoon. We have one more budget, and that is our illustrious finance department. And of course, becoming a familiar face is Director Emily Oster, our new finance director. I will turn this over to you and have you please call out your team as necessary and as you need to as you move through your presentation. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Chair Romero Worth and members of the Finance Committee. I am delighted to be here presenting our my first budget as Finance Director. And I would like to start by thanking the staff in the Finance Department and introducing the folks that we have in the room. So I am going to start. I will start at the back of the room. Yvette. Yvette, do you mind standing up? Great. This is Yvette Gonzalez. Yvette is our fiscal administrator, and what that translates into is she does whatever we need. She keeps things running, and I really, really appreciate Yvette. She, like we talked about on Tuesday, has jumped into our committee liaison work, which has been a big task this spring, and she's picked it up without a hiccup. It's been going really smoothly. She's been doing a great job. She's also picked up our HR work, which is critical as we try to fill vacancies, keeping positions moving, and all of that while juggling her regular workload. So Yvette is a superstar, and I am thrilled
and she even brings cheater glasses from the back of the room to save somebody at the podium who was having trouble seeing the fine print.
Like I said, she does whatever we need. She's always there to help. And so thank you so much, Yvette. Let's see. Then to my left is Andy Hopkins. I think you all know Andy, and there's really no way to adequately thank Andy for his over 20 years of service to the city and the budget division. I think you all know how exceptional Andy is and how lucky we are to have him. And I am incredibly grateful being new to the city and not really being a budget person. You know, my expertise is primarily on the accounting and financial reporting side of the house. So having the opportunity to work with Andy has been a pleasure, and I am really grateful for all of your hard work, Andy, and just thank you so much. And then to my right is the amazing Alexis Lotero. I am so grateful to have the opportunity to work with Alexis. And we did know each other when we worked at the state a little bit, but we hadn't really had the opportunity to work closely together. So it's been a great experience so far. And Alexis, I just really want to say thank you for helping me get up to speed, for teaching me the ropes and helping me translate, the state government world that I was pretty comfortable with into the municipal government world, which is just different enough to make me misstep and throw me off. It seems like at least a couple times a day. So the finance department consists of about 40 other amazing employees who aren't in the room here today. But I would like to thank all of them. I know a number of them are watching on YouTube, and just really can't say enough about what a great team that we have here in the city. And yes, Alexis is. Oh, Anita just walked in. Great. Yeah. Okay. I would like to recognize Anita Medina. Thank you. Anita is our principal budget analyst, and she joined the city just a few weeks before me. And I think her getting up to speed time has been exponentially faster than mine. So that tells you something about Anita. She is a true resource, and we're incredibly lucky to have her in the budget division. And thank you so much, Anita, for all of the work that you've done. Anita in the budget world does most of our personnel actions. So as far as keeping transactions moving and providing salary analysis, making sure we have enough money to fund positions that we want to fill, and then helping to prepare the personnel sections of the budget recommendation, which, as we talked about on Tuesday, are substantial. Personnel costs make up a significant expense in the budget. And all of that is Anita. Anita takes care of all that. So thank you so much, Anita.
Janelle is over there hiding behind the podium, but
Yes.
she's the one who's doing our PowerPoints for us during these meetings. So.
And Janelle recently joined us from the state, and we are delighted to have her. She is also getting up to speed extremely quickly. I would like to call out the budget team as being fully staffed, which is a real big accomplishment for finance. When I joined the team, Andy was the budget department. Well, actually, Anita had just joined. Yep. Andy and Anita. So Anita and I started around the same time. And then we've since added Amanda Romero and Janelle to the team. So very proud to have budget fully staffed. All right. Did I miss anyone else? Okay. Sorry. And thank you all. I appreciate everyone's hard work. And for the folks that are watching on YouTube, even though I didn't call you out by name, I am grateful for your hard work and all that you do to keep things running in finance. All right, with that, I'd like to dive into our presentation. Next slide, please, Janelle. Okay, so this slide shows the divisions within finance. We have accounting, budget, fleet, treasury, and purchasing. And what you'll see here with our FTE count is a decrease for this year. And I want to call out a couple of things on that. We are working with the general government group to do a reorg to move risk out of finance and into general government. So that reduction of FTE by 3 reflects the movement of those positions. I also just want to note that the first sentence in the notes is actually not applicable to FY24. That was proposed for FY23, and we decided not to do it. So we're keeping that finance project manager in finance, and he is helping us with the functional side of our IT implementation. So right now, that position is filled by Patrick Lucero, who is another awesome member of our finance team. And Patrick is assisting us with the implementation of the capital assets inventory and work orders module in Munis. He's also working on grants, project ledger, and project accounting, and a number of other needs related to Munis, but those 2 are on our priority list. So that position is staying in finance, and the 55 recommended number reflects that it will be staying in finance. Next slide, please. All right, so in the finance department, we have three main projects that were started when I came on board in September: the Munis upgrade, the development of this budget that we're presenting today, and getting the city caught up on its external financial statement audits. I am very pleased to let you know, and as we already heard from IT, that we've completed the upgrade of the Munis system, which was incredibly successful and very smooth. And we are now in the process of preparing and presenting the FY24 budget, while also simultaneously working on those FY21 and FY22 audits. And throughout all of that work, the staff in finance, with a 24% vacancy rate, is maintaining day-to-day operations and trying to make improvements as we move forward. So I think others may have compared this to building the plane while we're flying it. It's something like that. We're making adjustments, we're making tweaks, we're making improvements as we move forward, as we move along, and also trying to ensure that business isn't interrupted by any of those process changes. And underlying all of that is excellence and integrity in the accounting and finance and budget and fleet world. All of the different divisions of the finance department rely on folks who have a high degree of attention to detail and a commitment to accuracy. And so that foundation of excellence and integrity exists throughout the finance department. Let's see, what else do I want to highlight here? We are doing our best to provide timely, accurate, clear, and concise information to you all and to leadership throughout the city, so that we can make the best decisions that we can about how to utilize our resources. We are trying to build our culture around a commitment to exemplary customer service and taking a broad view of what our customer looks like. So when in finance, we do have a cashier's office, and we have a forward-facing group that interacts with the public. And then we also have many, many folks within finance that interact with other departments of the city, and that interact perhaps with even other governments, the state, for example, the county. And we take a very broad view of what customer means, all of those folks, and ourselves, each other, working with each other across divisions within the finance department. We try to provide each other with that same high level of customer service that we're providing at the cashier's window and to our partners out in other departments when they have a question or they need information for a grant application or whatever they might be working on. I think, under the description of the services here on our slide, I, really would like to highlight that customer service and high ethical standards underlie all of our decision making and everything that we do in the finance department. We also strive to ensure that the city is making responsible financial decisions and utilizing data to support the financial decision making that's occurring, and ensuring that city resources are responsive to the citizens of Santa Fe. And then, of course, compliance underlying all of that, making sure that we're doing our business in accordance with the ordinances and the laws relevant to our work. Diving into our FY24 recommended budget. Next slide, please. Great, thanks. I would like to highlight a couple of things. So you will see that our budget recommendation decreased by $2.5 million, or 8.5% from the FY23 budgeted levels. So this decrease was primarily attributable to one-time expenditures that were budgeted through one-time adjustments in FY23. So that doesn't reflect a decrease in ongoing department services. And those three positions that are transferring over to the general services area, the funding is going with them. So that is a reduction of the finance budget, but it's just a movement out of finance into general services. So those positions aren't going away. The primary things that decrease is attributable to our audit support. So we're, planning to only be doing one audit in FY24. So we don't think we'll need as much support. And then our reliance, we hope, on temps and on service contracts will be less in FY24 as we get staffed up and fill positions. So those are the two primary areas that account for that decrease. see. We do have an allocation in our budget to fund the salary proposal, which is a 3% salary increase across all positions that are making less than $100,000 per year, and a 1% increase for positions earning over 100,000 per year. One of the reasons why the city, why the finance department budget looks so large, you may see 27 million and think, wow, that's a lot for 40 people. But that budget funds the debt service on the outstanding bonds. So we have $8.7 million budgeted to pay our bond payments on our existing debt, and then another 6.3 million to fund other debt service, capital and capital maintenance costs throughout the city that are not self-supporting. We are including 2.3 million to continue to provide contract support to help the city get caught up on our audits and continue with our year-end close procedures. So that's down from over 3 million last year, but we're still budgeting a substantial contractual expense there for FY24. The ERP funding is shifting from finance into IT, and we think that's where it belongs, but we have budgeted a large amount, over $1.5 million, to provide support services for future ERP activities. So the support services are staying in the finance budget, but the actual software and IT piece of it moved over into IT. We do still have some ARPA and CARES Act money remaining that can be spent through FY24. So we have some funding budgeted in finance to assist with the administration of that federal funding. Next slide, please. Okay, great. So the next couple of slides go over what the different divisions within finance do. Accounting is responsible for some of our core functions, such as accounts payable, grants management, and payroll, as well as the financial statement audit primarily lives in accounting. So this group is very busy. We have some key vacancies in this area that I'm working very hard to fill. We've recently started conversations with a temp agency, Robert Half, that specializes in accounting and IT professionals, to try to get some assistance with filling the the accounting officer and the controller positions. So we do have a high vacancy right now, right now in accounting, and we're looking to try to fill those positions as quickly as we can, and we're getting support from Robert Half and from others with getting our getting as many applicants as we can for those key positions. Moving on to budget. Thanks, Janelle. Okay, so the budget division prepares the budget book, which is part of what we're reviewing today. They also provide short-term and long-term financial planning documents and information. Andy reviews and signs off on contracts to ensure that budget is available to fund them. Anita looks at all of our salary change requests. So if a department is wanting to move salary between a position and another position, that goes through a salary analysis process. And the budget division, conducts day-to-day activities to ensure that we don't overspend the budget that you all have approved. Andy, is there anything you'd like to add about the budget day-to-day?
Nope, I put it all on there.
Okay, great, thanks. Next up, we have fleet. So our fleet division is managed by David Jaramillo, and this is our only division that's not at City Hall. This division is over off of Seiler Road, and our fleet division is a 7-day-a-week operation that provides service on all of our city vehicles, excluding fire. They don't provide service on the fire department vehicles, but they do service police vehicles and all other types of city vehicles, ranging from ATVs all the way up to heavy equipment and tractors. And so these mechanics have a variety of different types of experience, and we also have our own parts shop. And then we operate a fueling center at Fleet as well, which we hope to start transitioning to a WEX card program in the near future. Okay, thank you. Andy is reminding me they don't do transit, so transit has their own mechanics too, but they work on a lot of different types of vehicles, and it's a very busy shop. The next division that I'd like to highlight is our purchasing division. So in purchasing, we have a new Chief Procurement Officer, Travis Dutton Leda, who's been with us for about 2 months, and we are thrilled to have him. We were almost fully staffed in purchasing, and we're getting back to it. We've recently added a position, moved a position from accounting into purchasing to help manage our P-card program, which is our purchase card program that departments use to purchase things that they need as part of their day-to-day business. The procurement team is responsible for ensuring that we comply with the purchasing manual and with state and city laws and regulations regarding purchasing, making sure that we're following competitive procurement practices whenever those are applicable, and ensuring that we have appropriate documentation depending on the type of procurement. And then the last division that we have within finance is the Treasury division. And it's last but certainly not least, Treasury is responsible for collection, deposit, and reconciliation of the city's receipts. They also manage the city's debt portfolio, the investments, and most of the revenue accounting happens in Treasury. The cashier's office, which is really the face of government here at City Hall, it's the first folks that people interact with when they come into the building, is in the Treasury division. And I just want to give a shout out to our folks at the cashier's office, to Christy and Randall, who work the window and provide excellent customer service to all the folks coming in to make payments here at City Hall. With that, councilors, I'd be happy to stand for any questions.
Questions from the committee? Councilor Rivera, sorry.
Thank you,
Over my
Madam
phone.
Chair. I know you send out an email about the bonds, but honestly, I just didn't have enough time to read it. So if you could just kind of talk about the 8.7 million to pay the debt services, which bonds are still outstanding, and
Certainly, Counselor. I may go back to my computer for that, and I can go through, you're talking about the report I sent out last night from Emma?
yes.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So I mentioned last night that we had an annual continuing disclosure requirement filing that was due on March 31st. And so that's the document, and that's what I emailed out to the full governing body last night. Okay. So Councilor Rivera, your question was about which bonds are outstanding?
Yes.
Okay, so this document, it's a 34-page document that contains a bunch of different information, including information about all of the outstanding debt. So if you scroll on to page 2, that gives you a list of the 13.7, almost $13.8 million of subordinate lien gross receipts tax refunding revenue bonds that are outstanding. This is a 2013 series, and the QSIP identifies each bond series. So that information is used by investors to identify the specific bonds that they hold.
So it's the second document, but the first page of what you sent out, right?
Madam Chair and Councilor Rivera, it is the second page of the one document. I want to make sure we're talking about the same.
Yeah, so I think the first page is March 31st, 2023, right? City of Santa Fe. And then there's a synopsis, subordinate lien gross receipts tax refunding revenue bond series 2013B. That's the page you're on.
Yes, Madam Chair.
Okay.
So from that 2013 B series, there are the $13.78 million of outstanding bonds, and they're identified by QSIP, and then the interest rates and the maturities are listed. And that continues for the next several pages of the report. On page 3, there is a detail of the $15.46 million that the city has outstanding in gross receipts tax improvement revenue bonds from the 2014 series. And then it continues on. The page 4 is the $12 million in general obligation bonds that are outstanding from the 2013 series. And keep in mind that most of these are 10-year issuances. So that's why the oldest ones we're seeing were primarily issued in 2013 and 2014. And, they're coming up on their maturity dates. So we're starting to pay these bonds off, which creates capacity for future debt issuances that'll allow us to borrow more in the future as we pay down the existing debt. Councilor Rivera, do you want me to keep going through the document, or did I answer your question?
So is the 8.7 million to pay some of these off, or just to continue paying the amount, I guess, for 2024?
Madam Chair, Councilor Rivera, those are for regular debt service payments. And I would note that that is primarily for the city's CIP related debt. So it would pay for debt on things such as the Guadalupe Street reconstruction project, the Cerrillos Road project, facilities projects such as the HVAC replacement on top of the building right above our heads here, over council chambers. There are some areas that it does not pay for that are paid, like, for example, utilities debt is paid directly from utilities. That 6 million, actually, could you go back a couple of slides, Janelle? Back to the budget highlights. There you go. The 8.8 million would be for general capital projects like, Guadalupe Street facilities, things like that. That 6.3 million, when we're talking about that, that's primarily debt service, but it is in entities that are called enterprise funds, such as MRC, but that are not fully self-supporting. So that is really kind of a debt subsidy to those funds, because the revenue earned by the MRC is not even close to enough to cover its costs, not even its debt costs.
Was this just for MRC, or are there other funds within that
No.
6.36 million?
No, there are a few others, I believe. Let me see. I believe there is some for rail yard. Let me look and make sure I get my list here. Let's see. We have some going to rail yard for their debt and capital, and I note this isn't just for debt, it's also for capital costs and capital maintenance costs. There's 1.5 million going to the rail yard, 3.3 million going to the Midtown project. The 113,000 going to MRC. There's a little over 250,000 going to parking, and approximately just under 850,000 going to transit, and then about just under 113,000 going to GCC.
Okay. And with this bond listing that you were going over, Emily, within those bonds, there are several projects, it sounds like, that are being funded through each bond.
Madam Chair and Councilor Rivera, that's correct. Yeah, the bonds would have funded a number of projects back in 2013 or 2014 when they were issued. And so, yeah, I think in relation to your question about the 8.7 million to pay debt service, that would not be enough to pay off all of the city's outstanding debt. That's just to make our scheduled payments. And these, if you look at the document, the interest rates are pretty low, so we probably wouldn't want to pay it off. We'd probably want to, just continue to make the payments. And actually to circle back on Counselor Garcia asked a question last night about if there were any call provisions included in our agreements for the existing outstanding debt. And I inquired of the city's financial advisor, municipal debt advisor, and also the city's bond counsel. And they told me that they're not aware of anything in the agreements for the current debt that would trigger any kind of accelerated repayment or anything like that. So I'll report back at the next full governing body meeting, but I thought I would go ahead and say, have the information.
And that one final question on that first page with the 13,780, the subordinate lien gross receipts tax refunding revenue bonds in 32 and 36, it actually jumps to 3 million.
Counselors, so if you look at the bottom of the page, it says that that is a term bond subject to a mandatory sinking fund redemption. So I would want George to give you a more technical explanation of what that means, but I believe it means that you pay more in the later years. You have lower payments in the earlier years of the debt, and then you pay more at the end.
All right. Yeah, you pointed that out and I said, oh yeah, you're right. It is at the bottom, but I wouldn't have understood it anyway. So.
Well, it's not really in English. I mean, it's in a certain type of English, but a very technical form of English.
Thank you, Counselor. Other questions from the committee? Nope. Okay, you can make a comment and then I'll ask a question.
I'll make a very quick comment. You managed to answer all of my questions in the presentation, so that was very handy. Thank you for that. I love the comment about planning on only doing one audit next year. So thank you for that plan. Really looking forward to that. And I do want to really recognize and thank the entire finance department. I know we have, but I don't think it can be said enough. I know that the getting caught up on the audits while also still producing the budget, while also still doing procurement and all the other things that go into finance that you just went over, has been an incredibly heavy lift. And I really want to recognize the work of this department and thank you all so much. And please pass that along to your staff. We really do recognize that it's similar to many of the other departments. A lot of what you do is behind the scenes. But it is incredibly necessary to keep the city running. So thank you all so much.
Thank you. All right, I am going to ask a few questions. Tell me again, and maybe we've heard this, the rationale, and this may be a question for the city manager, why we're taking the risk management out of finance and putting it in general services. Is that typical of other cities? Is that best practices? Is there I'm just curious what the rationale for doing that is.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I think my understanding prior to me joining the city team is that they've moved around quite a bit. And I think there wasn't quite a consensus as to where exactly they should go. At one point, risk was in one department, safety was in another. We didn't think that made sense. And so my deputy city manager and I have talked about sometimes when things get split between one department or another, we have found that our office may be the best place to house something that has multiple departments reporting to it. And so the goal was, I think there's very much a focus from the mayor and the deputy manager and myself about reinvesting in safety protocols and measures for city employees, both for our employees and the residents. But I think it made sense to bring them back together again, and my department seemed to be the best place to do that. We brought the band back together.
Okay, just curious about that. I do want to talk a little bit about your vacancies. You have 13, correct? And yeah. And you mentioned a couple that were really important in accounting, for which you are now seeking help through a temp agency. But maybe you could just walk us through the others.
Certainly, Madam Chair. We have a handful of vacancies throughout the department, which I would describe as, kind of natural attrition. I think accounting is the hardest hit right now because it's facing a big challenge in terms of getting audits caught up. In terms of, the fleet division, we have a couple of recruitments ongoing to hire equipment service techs. And so, those are, I believe, post-interview at this point. I recently signed paperwork to make offers to a couple of folks to fill 2 vacancies as equipment service techs in the fleet division.
And what do they do? Equipment service techs? Does it, I mean, I could guess by the title, but they service the equipment.
Yes,
They're mechanics.
They are not licensed mechanics. They're a level below and they're in training to become mechanics, I think,
Okay.
a lot of times, but they assist the mechanics that work on the heavy equipment and on vehicles. And we could certainly get you more detail. I'd love to have David Jaramillo come and really tell you in detail. I myself am not
That's okay.
Cool.
I'm just generally, we don't need to waste his time, I don't think. But there are 2 of those? 2 of those?
excuse me, Madam Chair, I'm sorry, what was the question?
There are 2.
Two equipment
two-
service techs that are vacant, that they're in the process of recruiting and filling
Okay.
in fleet. And then I think they also have 1 or 2 mechanic positions in fleet that they're also recruiting for. We recently lost 1 team member to the fire department. So, that was a promotion, and then folks, move around some, but they've had pretty good success recruiting, and fleet reports to Alexis. So I just want to do you have anything you want to add about staffing and fleet?
Madam Chair. It's actually kind of an interesting phenomena because we got David Armio, our fleet manager, from fire. So they have a tendency to go back and forth anyway. I have to give big shout out to our fleet manager. He's relatively new. He started last summer. He's doing an absolutely fantastic job. He's trying very hard to get fully staffed. He's been working very closely with, we have moved a position out of procurement into admin and finance to manage. We're going to have an auction for the first time in 5 years. So within the next couple of finance meetings, you're actually going to see the disposal list, and it's going to be very long. So
Because we haven't done that in a while, correct?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And David, I have to say, has been instrumental in that effort. It's going to occur in June.
Hmm.
Do a little bit of advertising on local radio, so you'll also hear about it that way. But he has been interviewing and hiring very aggressively. So those positions should not be vacant for very long.
Okay, terrific. And that's good to know. I'm glad I'm asking this question. So we have 4 in fleet at this point.
Yes, 4 in fleet. And budget, as we mentioned, there are 0. They're fully staffed. So
Wahoo.
great. We talked a little bit about accounting. There are multiple vacancies in accounting. The 2 highest level positions are the accounting officer and the controller. And those 2 have been advertised now for 6 to 8 weeks, and we've struggled to find candidates. So we're working with Robert Half to try to find, broaden the pool of candidates.
And let me just stop you on that one, because those, I know, we, in your audit updates, these have been identified over and over again. Is this this isn't, or maybe it is, I've lost track, it's all a blur. How many times have we advertised for this? Is this, it seems like maybe when Mr. Bejarano was here, I recall, so maybe this is a multiple round.
Yeah.
Just to further emphasize that these are really hard positions to fill right now in this economy.
Madam Chair, that's absolutely right. So I can tell you what we've done since I've been here, and I understand that there were several similar efforts to fill the recruitment for the controller position prior to that. So since I've been here, we have interviewed for the controller position twice, and we made selections, and both candidates withdrew for other opportunities. just this week on Monday, I talked to Robert Half on Monday about a candidate for the controller position. We sprung into action trying to get a PO in place, and by Tuesday afternoon, they had accepted another opportunity. So we're moving forward with getting that PO in place with Robert Half to, get help on a temporary basis. But what's really, clear to me is even with that, we have to be ready to go.
You have to jump when they're available
Exactly.
because the market is so competitive for this particular position.
There's so much demand and, you just have to be, like I said, ready to move forward immediately. So we're getting a PO in place so that we can, as Robert Half sends us additional candidates. Back to the city's own efforts to recruit for the controller, I understand that there was at least one recruitment in calendar year 2022. I think it was probably more like 2 or 3. Alexis may be able to speak to that. And it was the same story, the list of eligible applicants would be maybe 1 or 2 candidates. Interviews were conducted, offers were made, or preliminary offers were made, and the candidates withdrew or declined for a variety of reasons. So it's a very specialized skill set because, not only are we looking for accountants with managerial skills, they also need to have expertise in governmental accounting. So a kind of a niche market even within the accounting profession. And then on the accounting officer front, we were very lucky to have Ricky with the city for the year that he was with us. And it's a great thing for the state that he's now the deputy state auditor. And we will be working closely with him as we submit the audit reports to the state auditor to get them released. So I think, it's important for all governments in the state that we have strong leadership in the state auditor's office. And of course, we miss him here on a daily basis. So, Ricky brought an exceptional caliber of experience and the CPA credential into that role. That role does require a CPA license and 15 years of supervisory experience. So in addition to, people who are highly skilled in accounting, that role requires extensive supervisory experience. So it's tough to fill. But, Robert Half has already sent me 1 resume for a potential candidate. So I think there are folks out there.
And Robert, you said a temp agency. So I was thinking you're hiring temporary for this, but they're like a hiring agency. They're like headhunters. They help. So it's not that we're putting temporary people in these roles. I think I misunderstood your presentation.
Madam Chair and counselors, I think I probably should have been more precise. So thank you for that question. Robert Half provides a variety of different services. They're on a statewide price agreement, and they can provide true temporary services or temp to hire. So, we're looking at both. Honestly, we're just looking for candidates that have these skill sets that can come in right away. I would prefer to fill these positions permanently. But if, the candidates that are available are only willing to, do it on a 6 to 9 month basis, then, we may do something like that to fill the gap on a temporary level where we're continuing the permanent recruitment.
That sounds tricky. Are you, and then 15-year supervisory experience, I remember talking about this. Are we looking at whether we think we still require that level of supervisory experience, like maybe reclassifying or redoing the job description on that?
Madam Chair and counselors, we are. I think nothing is off the table. We're working with the Human Resources Department. I think that the sense is that we really do want someone with the CPA credential in that accounting officer role. And potentially there's opportunity with regard to that years of supervisory experience requirement to broaden the pool a little bit. But at this point, we have the controller position has the CPA credential as a desirable qualification, but not mandatory. And so it is a little bit lower level than the accounting officer position. But we do have a career ladder and a range within accounting, so I don't want to lose that. But I also want to make sure that we're, putting ourselves in the best position to fill these vacancies. With regard to the CPA credential, just to put it in context, I was licensed in 2010 and my license number is 6,446. So that's from the beginning of the CPA profession in New Mexico.
The beginning of time.
Well, I worked for people in the past when I was in public accounting who had 3-digit license numbers and maybe a few that had 2-digit license numbers. And we certainly gave them a hard time about that and about how GASB just recently issued their 100th accounting standard. And, back then when, you were getting a license number with a 2-digit number, there was no GASB. The GASB didn't even exist. And now here we are with 100 different standards issued by that organization. So just to put you in put that in perspective. In 2010, when I got my license, there had only ever been fewer than 6,500 CPAs licensed in the state since, the 1940s. So it's a relatively small group of people.
Okay. So I guess I got 4, 5, 6 of your 13. We're halfway there.
Okay. All right. So we've talked about accounting, and in accounting, we also have other vacancies. We've got accounts payable is currently fully staffed. We have a accounting manager position also in the accounting group that I hope to use either for capital assets or for general ledger chart of accounts, or maybe both. So that position is currently vacant. In Treasury, we've had a couple of really exciting internal promotions recently. We had a long-term vacancy in a lodger's tax position that was recently filled through internal promotion. That person is moving into their new role starting next week, so that's exciting. We have 3 vacancies. Let's see. One is in grants, one is in Treasury, and one I believe is in the controller org, which is part of accounting for the accounting financial analyst positions. And those are post-interview. We hope to do some additional promotions internally as part of that recruitment. It's still underway, so don't know for sure what the outcome will be, but we had some strong internal candidates, so we hope to fill those positions. And then in the purchasing area, we have the position that we mentioned earlier for P-card, and then we have a purchasing agent, which is an entry-level position in purchasing that we've conducted 1 round of interviews on, and we decided to put it back out to recruitment. We only got 1 candidate on the list of eligibles and wanted to try advertising that position again. I think that's all I mean. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's helpful. Just to get a sense of, kind of what we're looking at there.
Thank you, Counselor, for that question. And I just really want to acknowledge that the staff throughout finance is carrying those additional duties associated with those vacancies. And I am really grateful for their hard work.
Right. Okay. And then I just want to talk about 2 things. One, about that famous McCard report, which I know there's been some criticism that, oh, it's so old, it's not good anymore. But there's a lot of stuff in there that we have not done and still needs to be done and is still timely. Maybe, not adverse to having another look. But that report is still, I think, a viable report. And I know we need to do more with internal controls, and we need to do more policy and procedure work by department. And I guess I just ask you, your budget, do you feel comfortable that you have in this budget what you need to continue to do that work?
Madam Chair and counselors, thank you for that question. I think that we are in a really good position, in my opinion, with regard to budget. I think where we have challenges is finding the people. I think it's the labor shortage in this specialized area of expertise that's really our biggest hurdle in, continuing to work on addressing those areas identified in the McCard report. I think that the city has come a very long way since the report was issued in 2017. As an example of that, I would cite the implementation of Munis and the subsequent upgrade of Munis. And now we're in the process of implementing additional functionality in Munis. And so that evolution is continuing. I think that that is one of the recommendations that was specifically noted in the McCard report that the city has made a lot of progress on and is continuing to make progress on. As far as policies and procedures, I think, they when you talk about internal controls, when I go to continuing education, the thing that gets repeated over and over again is that work is never done, because even if you get everything, you think it's perfect, the world around you continues to change and evolve, and you have to adapt to what's happening in the environment. So, the policies and procedures work and the internal control structure has to continue to evolve based on the current conditions, both here in the city and just the environment that we're in nationally and globally. So that is not something where I would ever want to say, okay, that's done. I think that's something that just has to be built into the culture and into every job description within city government, that we all become experts at documenting our processes, memorializing that information in a way that it transfers between people as promotions happen and as people move from one position to another. Alexis, do you want to add anything?
I was just going to say, thank you, Madam Chair, for that question. Over the last year, and we're continuing it into next year, one of the things that Emily and I have talked about that we both strongly encourage is membership in AGA. So we're really pushing that among staff. I was very surprised when I arrived at the city and there was so few members of AGA, because it really is a great resource. And we have put money into training that we are using this year. We're sending several people to the GFOA training.
Can you help with the alphabet soup? And speak a little bit more into your mic.
I have a tendency to mumble. We are sending, GFOA is the Governmental Finance Officers Association. So we have a handful of people attending that. And this will be the second year we're attending the Munis training, which this year will be in San Antonio. AGA, in addition to providing these annual trainings, also has monthly lunches. We've talked about trying to encourage people to attend those. It's a good networking opportunity. So we are pushing on more professionalizing and training the staff.
And AGA stands for accounting.
Association of Governmental Accountants.
Okay, thank you.
So those efforts are also ongoing.
Great.
Those are excellent points, Alexis. And I'd like to add that we are also sending a number of staff members, and other departments are also sending staff to a grants training that's being held in Albuquerque this month. I think it's next week. So we have 2 of our grant accountants going to that training. And today and tomorrow in I think Bernalillo is the annual AGA, Association of Government Accountants, professional development training. So we have some folks participating in that as well. So we're trying to invest in our team and build up their skills and encourage them to network and participate in continuing education opportunities.
Great. And again, not to belabor the McCard report, but the number of recommendations that were in there, they weren't things that could be done overnight. They were things that would take time, and we are chipping away at them, as you say, but they are things that even under the best conditions, if you had fully staffed departments and didn't have a pandemic and didn't have changes in leadership and that kind of thing, still would have taken time.
Madam Chair and councilors, yes, I think, the underlying theme under the McCard report, in my opinion, has to do with modernizing and professionalizing city government. And that's an ongoing effort. That's not something where I would ever really expect us to say, okay, we're done with that, we're finished. There's always more opportunities for improvement. And as I said, I mean, the world around us is changing, so we're continuing to evolve. So that culture shift and that focus on professionalization and modernization is happening all throughout city government. And even, with there have even been changes in the way that city government is structured, that
Right.
are affecting how that process is unfolding. So
Yeah, but even if this work is never done, so to speak, we didn't even have it basically in place to continue to improve on it in a lot of instances. And that's the work that's been going on.
Madam Chair and councilors, what I've observed is that I think, the city as a whole underwent a big change, in terms of going from being a small town to a city. And so that affects all aspects of city government. And as an administrative function, finance, had to grow up fast. And, we're still going through that process. We're evolving and going, things that worked 10 or 15 years ago don't work anymore because the environment that we're operating in is just fundamentally different.
Okay, and then just briefly, I want to go back to the bonds and our bond payments and that you have been in contact with the proper people about whether there are call provisions to accelerate repayment. And I guess we have a lot of money that it's large chunks of money that we have. I'm trying to figure out how to ask this question. We have significant debt, and we pay attention to how much debt it's safe for us to go out for. And the nature of that debt is, not without consequence. And so the whole idea is that I think you said there were 10 years, some of these bonds are 10 years. And the whole idea is that they're big investments that you pay off in increments over time. And that is a really significant part of issuing bonds and taking on debt. And it's a lot like, any kind of big expense, even for personal things like buying a house or buying a car. I mean, those things are, if you take on those kinds of purchases, you're very careful, and people who will issue that debt are going to be very careful in terms of whether you're worthy for that debt. And I guess I just want you to affirm that. And also, we as a city, we're a world-class city, and we are, people are coming here, our revenues are strong. We are a good, I'm trying to seek the right words in the finance world. Yeah, we're a good investment. We're a good risk. And that still remains true.
Madam Chair and councilors, I would agree with that. I think the Santa Fe environment has a lot of advantages. And I think that in their affirmation of the city's bond ratings back in October and December last year, Fitch called out several of those. I think that the city has, a robust tourism economy, which helps tremendously, with gross receipts tax. If we were comparing ourselves to some of our peer cities, even here in New Mexico, such as maybe Las Cruces, Farmington, Roswell, their tourism economy is very different from ours. Not that they don't have it, but it's not the same. Another thing that we've done is that the reserves have increased over the last several years. And on the utility side, there have been some responsible adjustments to rates that have allowed operations to continue to be funded by the amounts that folks are paying for utility services. So I think that the city has a lot of upside, in terms of being a good investment. And I really would like to just continue to reiterate that S&P's credit watch is not based on any concern about the city's credit worthiness. There's not been any question raised about the city's ability to repay its debt. We are making the payments on time, and this budget reflects that. We're budgeting money for debt service to make our bond payments. It's really just about availability of information in order to comply with their policies. The securities industry is heavily regulated at the federal level, and S&P has their own regulators and oversight that are ensuring that the ratings that they're providing are reliable for people that are purchasing these bonds.
Sorry, my mic was off. I just don't want to cause unnecessary alarm that somehow we would be put in some sort of financial precarious position by having to repay the, significant debt levels when there's no basis for it.
Madam Chair, I appreciate that question. And so I think, when we get into the realm of, hypothetical what if type scenarios, it becomes kind of a imagination based exercise. And sometimes that can lead into a dark place, but
yeah. I appreciate kind of what if questions, but I think you have to assess the probability of the what ifs. I could die tomorrow. What's the probability of that? And what should I do today? Oh my God, I might not live to be tomorrow. So
Lord.
but again, not to be, to be extreme, honestly, but I think there's.
And Madam Chair, I think, it's always best to, prepare for the worst, but hope for the best.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm not suggesting that we shouldn't take things seriously. And I think your open line of communication with S&P is very prudent and, providing the information we do have, and making sure that they are understanding the situation we're in and what we're doing to address it and all those kinds of things. Absolutely important. But I just don't want to create false alarm, I guess.
Madam Chair, I absolutely agree with that. And I think that we can take this situation seriously and respond appropriately and put everything we've got into getting these audits done, and also continue with our day-to-day business. I think, when that question came up last night, I reached out to our experts, our municipal bond advisor and our bond counsel, and asked them, are you aware of any provisions in our outstanding debt agreements that would result in accelerated payment or any kind of call if there were some sort of rating action? And they both said no. So I think we, investigated that potential, and I don't think there's cause for concern.
And I think the fact that question came up last night, it's only been 12 hours and you already have the answer, suggests how seriously you are taking the situation we're in and responding to the questions that are being asked. And, I appreciate that. And I think that underlies, that this is serious business. Nobody's not taking it seriously. So.
Absolutely, Madam Chair. And I also think that it reiterates that we have the right people on board. I was able to reach out to George Williford and Peter Franklin and ask them the question. They were really prompt about getting back to me. So I don't want to take all the credit for that, but I do think, that's just really another example of how we're getting the right people into the right seats on the bus to do the business.
Well, and that you have the right expertise and professionals around you that you could make a phone call and get that information as quickly as you did and not have to pore over documents for days and hours and distract your staff who are doing other important things on that mission. So that's terrific. Counselor Lindell.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to make a couple of comments on this that in talking about this last night and talking about it today, I appreciate the calm you bring to this. We can pitch at this team any kind of catastrophe or zombie apocalypse that we care to, but the truth of the matter is that I think this team has been really, really well prepared. The calm that you bring is appreciated. No one isn't taking this serious. I think we're marching toward a finish line. And it's in sight. And I think it's been really, really hard on this department. It's been hard on the city. But we've all taken it seriously and we're getting there. So I give you a lot of appreciation about that, and your team's gone through a lot. I'm really appreciative of how everyone's handled themselves and not whacked back and not reacted in anger. I know it would have been easy to. So thank you guys all very, very much for all the work that you do. And we're getting there. And probably the zombie apocalypse is not coming.
Madam Chair and Councilor Lindell, thank you. I think that really means the world to the staff. You know, just this morning, we had a conversation with the accounting staff, and it is discouraging to hear, you know, some of the things that are being said in the public forum. And for all of you, you know, Councilor Cassett, Councilor Romero-Worth, Councilor Lindell, and Councilor Rivera, when he was here, to express your support for the finance team is really timely and extremely fuel in our tanks to keep plugging away. And you are absolutely right. We are getting there, and this is an achievable task. I think that there was some sense that, you know, of hopelessness maybe at some points in this process. And I just really want to reassure you that we are getting this done. We're on the right path, and the finish line is in sight. I can't tell you exactly when we're going to get there, but we're on the right path. I see it ahead of us.
The sooner the better.
Yes.
We're going to have a big party, I got to tell you. And the fact that you've only budgeted for one audit next year, I have to say, that too was also music to my ears. So fantastic. All right. I think we have kept you on the hot seat long enough, but it was a good opportunity to take a deeper dive into the finance department and all the things you all are doing. And again, just want to echo what's been said. Thank you for the work you're doing. Thank you for what you've done to put together this budget. I have sat on every single finance committee since I was elected, budget round. So this must be, you know, budget number 5. And I feel like every year our process gets better. We make improvements. We're getting more professional. We need to get more professional. And I can see the improvement. And it's incremental and it's slow. But I thank you. And I thank everybody in the back of the room for all the work you continue to do under what I still consider extraordinary circumstances. So anyway, without any more, it's 4 o'clock. I think what we need to do though is do preliminary approval of the budgets we heard today, if the committee is willing to do that. And I think we still have enough people to operate.
I move to preliminarily approve. Do you want me to read off all the?
Yeah, I think we better.
Got them right here.
Well, you look, can I say something real fast?
Sure.
I love all my children equally. I just, I do. This team is doing 3 audits in 1 year. They just got through the budget, the Munis upgrade. They are working their tails off. Everyone who's sitting at this table is crushing it. I want to make it a point to thank Alexis for when the previous finance director left, Alexis didn't blink before she stood up and took the helm, steadied the ship, brought balance and professionalism to the team, and made sure that we were moving forward. I keep calling Director Oster my unicorn that showed up, and we were lucky enough to have found her in the forest. But under some public ugliness, some real scrutiny, a lot of stress, they're quietly, diligently getting it done. And I'm grateful for all that they're doing. Just want to say that.
Okay, we're not supposed to do the clapping, but I understand the sentiment. All right, Counselor Lindell, you had a motion?
So I do, I think I probably need to make a separate motion on each department.
Madam Chair, because it's preliminary, I think you're.
Yeah, I think we can
Okay,
go.
I will go, I'll make a preliminary approval motion for finance, human resources, information technology, telecommunications,
Municipal court.
and municipal court.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. I think we need a roll call. Director Oster?
Certainly, Madam Chair, Counselor Cassett,
Yes.
Counselor Lindell,
Yes.
Counselor Romero Worth.
Yes. All
Motion
right.
passes.
We will see you all next week. Bye all.
Thank you.